Welcome back to the HerbRally Podcast. Today I'm excited to have on Laura Ash. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Smoking herbal blends. We need some Mullen and some Kush, my brethren. While listening to HerbRally Podcast again. Herbalism at its finest with Mason Hutchinson. Yeah.
Yeah, excited to hear about you and the Land of Verse, which is your herbalism school. But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself along with what is the Land of Verse?
Yes, absolutely. So nice to be with you today. I am through and through a clinical herbalist and very much an entrepreneur. And we know entrepreneurship is a disease and there's no herbs to cure it. I am inflicted for sure, which means I wake up in the middle of the night with ideas and have ideas for other people all the time. And that creativity just really lights me up about possibility. And I think entrepreneurship is so exciting because it is all about possibility and it'll bring people into new areas with new communities. It's really exciting. So I've been an herbalist since I was 19. I'm 43 now, so it's been a while. But it was really my own personal journey and reading a lot of books and having experiences throughout my life with a lot of illness and actually sickness. And so my first herb book was actually an aromatherapy book that I found at a used bookstore when I was 19 called The Practice of Aromatherapy by Jean Vernet, which is a French medical aromatherapist. And I had pneumonia, and I had pneumonia a lot as a child. I had pneumonia, I think the first time I was 6 weeks old. So antibiotics absolutely saved my life. But there was a moment I was sick. I just didn't want to take meds. You know, I was old enough to make that decision for myself. Not that I wouldn't have if I got really sick. I just wanted another option. And I kind of didn't know how to go about it. You know, my herbs in my home were Advil and vitamin C from Costco. You know, those were the herbs in my home. I was not raised with herbalism. So I really didn't, this was a very new adventure for me. So I found this book and I looked up pneumonia and it said that lavender was used for pneumonia. So I bought the book and I went to my very first time to a natural food store and bought a lavender essential oil, that little acacia bottles that were really common back then. It's still common today. And I used lavender for a couple of weeks and my pneumonia was cured. And I felt that I think the big thing that shifted me into the world of herbalism was the way I felt afterwards. I didn't feel bogged down and exhausted, but my pneumonia was gone. I felt actually like my body had done it. And there was that palpable shift that, oh, my immune system is actually just needs a little support and help. And these essential oils were really strong. And what about herbs? So I dove into the world of aromatherapy through self-study. And then I got into food as healing and then into herbalism. And then I was able to apprentice with some herbalists. But my first herb job was at an herbal apothecary in Seattle called Tenzing Momo, which means illustrious dumpling in Tibetan, in the Pike Place Market. It's the oldest herbal apothecary on the West Coast. And I was 21 when I got my job there, and I worked there for 2 years and just absorbed everything. And since then, I've had many different companies in my belt. I went to herbal medicine school at the California School of Herbal Studies in 2005 and 2006, then moved back down to Northern California where I grew up. And I was running a chai tea company at the time, and I put myself through herb school with running this little chai tea company that I started. And then from there, I actually wanted to be in the world of beauty and how can we actually affect health with the world of beauty. So I helped co-found an organic spa. I was brought in as the kind of product maker. I created all the teas and a lot of the products that we used, and wanted to kind of see where herbalism and beauty crossed over. And that intersection was in the spa world. And that was a fun adventure. I was running my chai tea company at the time. And then I ended up selling my chai tea company for very little, which was great. I was making very little too, but it was just, I was living very, very cheaply. And with a lot of people in a really scrappy time of being a very budding herbalist. So I felt very abundant with that life. But then I ended up getting married and getting pregnant and moving around the world. And I was able to, I lived in Oxford, England, when my now ex-husband was going to school in Oxford. And I ended up wanting to find my own traditional wisdom again. And I went up to the northern Lapland, Sweden. My family is all Western European, mostly English and Swedish. And then there's French and German in there as well. And I wanted to find my Swedish ancestry and went up to the Sami land and met up with a Sami herbalist, which are indigenous people of the Scandinavian region. And I met this woman named Greta Huva, who's since passed. And she was one of the only traditional Sami people practicing herbalism in this community up in the Arctic Circle called Jokkmokk. And she had this tiny little booklet written down of her herbs. And I was shocked as an herbalist that had just been studying volumes and volumes of herbals from around the world. I was really surprised. And I said, where are all your herbs? And she goes, we've lost them. This is colonization. Essentially, all of our children have been Western educated by the Swedish government, making everyone having to go into Western schools. And all of the elders are passing away. And this is oral tradition. And it was the first time I really understood about traditional medicine loss and indigenous medicine loss. And because this was my own, I suddenly got that, all of us have indigeneity, and a lot of us have lost it actually a very, very long time ago, especially Europeans. And it's a really important thing to try to find again, because many traditions are still alive and just starting that process, or have been in that process for a couple hundred years, but we lost it hundreds and hundreds of years ago, mostly through the Roman Catholic Church and different witch burnings. And so I moved to Tanzania the following year and worked with a Maasai man on his traditional medicine preservation. He pulled me in. He said, you're an herbalist. I want to preserve my traditional medicine. And I was so excited after my experience in Sweden. I said, of course, I'm going to help you. And it was this amazing project. I wrote a book called Maasai Traditional Medicine in supporting his work. I say all of this will come back to the business questions for sure. When I moved back to the States the following year to Madison, Wisconsin, I know you're a Wisconsinite now.
That's right.
I went to compile all of the information that I had and found that because I was the one who wrote down the medicine with Sayanga and his wisdom, I was the one who owned it, which is very common for researchers and supplement companies and pharmaceuticals to own the intellectual property around traditional wisdom. I knew that was a problem, and that was something I obviously was not going to support and go through. And so I ended up finding out about the World Intellectual Property Organization and their traditional knowledge division. And so they have a traditional knowledge and folklore and genetic resources division. And so I founded a 501c3 called Herbal Anthropology Project, which helps preserve and protect traditional medicine around the world with indigenous communities to support their intellectual property protection. So with that 501c3, I was able to use the legal language with the World Intellectual Property Organization and their TK division to protect that for his community. And then life happens. I needed to move back to San Francisco and make sure, I was a single mom at the time, make sure my kids had access to their father. And I ended up acquiring Scarlet Sage. I ended up buying the stores at his 20th year anniversary. And so then I ran Scarlet Sage, the herbal apothecary in San Francisco, for 9 years. But in 2018, I ended up founding the School of Traditional Healing Arts in the basement of the store. And we had classes and education, and it was this beautiful local resource. And COVID happened. So we had to pivot online very, very quickly. And all the while, Herbal Anthropology Project was always the support system in the background that I knew I would do when I grew up, and just keeping that keeping that motivation alive, as the intention really alive through all the work that I was doing. So then when we pivoted online, I realized that this was actually a very different beast, a very different company. And so I made it its own company now called Land of Verse. And Land of Verse, verse meaning poetry, song, story, and that all traditional medicine and all traditional wisdom is passed down in story and in song, usually through song, actually, and through the plants. And if you learn a historical story of a plant, as you know, it comes with birthing ceremonies, wedding ceremonies, cleansing ceremonies, medicine, food, and all stories of people. So they actually become keystones of conservation. And so my goal with Verse is to have everyone actually go deeper into their own ancestral wisdom through herbal medicine education. You can become a clinical herbalist. And then with our new program, which will be this holistic business group that I'm starting called Holistic Business Folk.
I like that.
The goal is that people also can make a living doing what they love to do, because I have a very, very selfish motive to have all of my herbalist friends be the most wealthy people in the world, because this world would look like a very different place. But there's a lot of pain and a lot of fear around money because of what powerful people do with it. And so how do we shift that mindset that it's just options? And so that's why I'm here with you today, to really talk about all of those pieces.
Thank you for sharing all of that. I want to say I first met you, it might have been at the Portland plant. No, it was at the Traditional Roots Conference in Portland. And you were really chatting a lot about the anthropology work that you were doing. And just incredible. Even Sherry, our guest today, and the audience says, "Wow, incredible!" So I couldn't agree more. You've got quite the resume, Laura, and I am excited to get into the what do you call it? The herbal entrepreneur folk. Am I getting that right?
Yes.
Herbal business
holistic
folk?
business folk.
Okay, I totally butchered that. All right. Holistic business folk. It's interesting. It does seem like herbalists do struggle a lot with like their relationship with money and business and marketing. We just had on Tad Hargrave. He does marketing for hippies, and we chatted a bunch about that in a previous HerbRally podcast episode. But let's chat a little bit about what are some of the problems you find some herbal entrepreneurs facing these days.
Yeah, I would say most of the work that I've done with other advisors and teachers. So I definitely do not do things completely solo. That's one of my most important assets that I bring, is making sure to pull in people smarter than me and wiser than me, more experienced than me in many different places. So what I've learned and gleaned from my many years of business education, either formally or informally or through advisement, is 80% of it is mindset of possibility. Do you have the strength and capabilities that you think you need in order to do the thing that you need to do or you want to do? A lot of that coming with risk. And I know systemic racism and systemic class issues and history of genocide becomes the biggest barrier for people to have the network, to have the ability and the strength to be able to do what they want to do. And so really the goal is surrounding yourself first with people that have done something that you want to do, and glean and ask questions and find out what happened so you can start shifting that idea of possibility. I think that's the biggest thing with herbalists that I've noticed, is that they are not around people generally that have been as successful as they want to be, but the only examples they see in the world are actually pretty damaging to the world. And we really care deeply about the earth and care deeply about community. And so the avoidance of, I don't want to be that person comes with money, I think comes with that idea that therefore, if I make money, I'm actually going to become a bad person. Or I'm going to be disconnected from my community, or I'm going to be isolated from my community. And we are hardwired to not want to be isolated from our community that we hold so dear. So that fear is the biggest piece that I see. And then the lack of education around it. It's just like herbalism. We have to read the books. We have to learn. We have to listen to the podcast. We have to ask questions of mentors. It's the same idea, but where are the mentors in the world? I think, Mason, you're one of them that actually are a success story that we can glean from.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and when you were first introducing yourself, you identified as an entrepreneur, and you're constantly having ideas and thoughts in the middle of the night. And I definitely identify that way as well. And when I first started getting into, well, first I really got into herbalism and natural health to heal myself. And it was really funny when I got a job in the marketing department at Mountain Rose Herbs. Well, I'm like, well, how do I do this? I didn't go to school for marketing, and I started like listening to podcasts and audiobooks and stuff like that to really start learning how to be in this world. And I was like, this feels so unnatural. Like I'm really into like hippie stuff. And eventually it grew kind of addicting in a good way. I think that I learned a lot about there is ways to do ethical business and ethical marketing and all of that. But it's just something that you really have to start educating yourself in. And I think this group that you're hosting is going to be a really positive for folks who want to create that community to learn how to do all of this business stuff, if you will.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's also the language around it that I think you and I probably have read plenty of books where the metaphors and analogies in business are artillery. They're very patriarchal. They're very focused on war and built in industrial images of trains and buildings and artillery.
That's a good point.
And my goal is to shift that language, exactly, conquering like this idea of colonization, really, because business is the issue is that business is actually one of the most natural things for us to do as human beings. We've been trading and sharing information and selling things, bartering forever, as long as we've been around. So actually it's the most natural thing for us to do. And money is just the thing that's gotten in between those natural barter value systems, right? And so my goal is to shift some of that language. Instead of driving the train while building the railroad tracks, we plant the seeds while we're sowing the harvest, right?
Nice.
We're watering the garden to find the options for all of the things we want to do. So I've actually been really inspired by a lot of people, a lot of indigenous teachers to talk about us as ecological systems. And in business, how are we looking at permaculture? How are we looking at the natural ways that humans interact with nature in a really positive way? But how does that actually intersect with our business lives? Maybe there's a different word for business. I don't know, but trying to shift. So we see ourselves as this is natural, this is okay. We can make a living, right? The worst thing about money is that poverty really sucks. Yeah. And so how do you make a living so you can feel really taken care of and really supported?
Absolutely. Yeah, for whatever reason, the book, The Art of War by Sun Tzu comes to mind. I feel like that's used a lot as an example in various like business books where they glorify that concept and everything. But
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in my early days, and maybe this is kind of common for people who have hippie type leanings, but I definitely glorified like being poor and almost to the point of homelessness and living super duper minimally. And maybe I'm just getting old and like a little more creature comfort, but I definitely, and also the need and want to provide for my family. I want to have some resources here, and I would like to go about it in an ethical way. And so, yeah, again, I give you kudos and props. Thank you for creating this, because this is definitely something the herbalist community needs. And I am seeing more and more of these types of programs sprout up where there's herbalists who definitely do have an expertise in the realm of business as well. And Laura, you're the perfect person to host this type of group. Before we move on with some more questions, why don't we shout out the website? It's Land of Verse. Will the landing page for this program, excuse me, be live by the time this airs?
Yes, it will. And the name of it is Holistic Business, folks. So you can also just look that up as well. But it will be ready by the time this is up there. Yeah.
Awesome. Landaverse.com. Follow them on all the socials as well. I'm going to say that's at Landaverse on Instagram, etc. We'll leave links to that in the podcast show notes. So just out of curiosity, as I was researching for this episode, I was checking out your Instagram profile and whatnot, and a question that came up for me was, what are some daily routines that you do to grow as an entrepreneur?
That's a really great question, and that's going to be an individual question. But I think I have been doing some business coaching one-on-one recently, as my life has transitioned quite a bit, and my career is in very much a transition place right now. And what I'm seeing over and over again that other people do as well, which is exciting to see what's going on in the zeitgeist, is spending the time they need every day to make sure that they have the energy to look at their finances. So it's not about bullying ourselves into doing this. It's actually watching ourselves of the resistance of doing this and then making sure the self-care is centered around the why am I not able to do this? I'm afraid. Most people are afraid to do two things: look at finances and look at their health. And what are we doing?
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah. Amazing, right? Yeah. And yet it gives us the biggest fear and it makes us the most uncomfortable. People lose sleep over money all the time. So I think there's that self-care thing is individual, of course, but the reality is, how do I take care? Do I put time aside every day at the same time to look over my finances or to look at these spreadsheets or structures in place? Some people are naturally really good at spreadsheets, and some people it's really, really hard. I actually build spreadsheets for all of my students and give it to them, and then they just put their own numbers in it, because I know how hard it is sometimes to just get started. And so I've done them over and over again. So I give them to my little business students that I have either at my school or other schools that I teach business in. So I know the barriers there. Other than the self-care, I would say making sure, and the daily self-care, there's sleep is really important that I do. I make sure to have good sleep. And I try not to be on social media very much. Even though I know it's really important for my business, it's important for people to share. But creating the time that I'm not on it is really just as important, because I know for me that comparison to others and watching what people have and I don't have actually really goes pretty quickly deep into my psyche. And so I'm very intentional about not having that pervade my well-being every day.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's as business owners, we kind of have to be on social media, but for us, maybe it's better to produce content and put it out there as opposed to spending all of our time, receiving it. And the jealousy bug strikes all of us, none of us are immune to that. So absolutely. I think that's a really healthy boundary. And I'll just, highlight checking the budget. I'm overly obsessive, but I use a software called, this is not sponsored by the way, You Need a Budget, aka YNAB.com as the acronym. And I actually have gotten so into budgeting that I maybe do it too much, but I'm on my budget probably 3 times a week, where I'm budgeting my personal finance along with the business finance on there as well, along with QuickBooks. But that's a different story. But it is so important to track your spending and to see where the money's going. Ignorance is not bliss. And once you start seeing where the money's going, you're able to start actually creating goals around that and building the life that you want to live. So I just want to highly recommend, whether you get YNAB or some other sort of budgeting software, whether you're using Excel spreadsheets or Google Docs or something, it's super important. And dang, I want to do a whole episode on that sometime. Maybe it's outside the realm of yeah.
But I think the barrier, I know you are actually. I've talked to you about this before, so it makes me really, really happy. That's the barrier to entry even there. And this is where I think I love herbs so much. Herbs get us over the bridge to get to the thing that we really want to be doing, but for some reason we can't, right? It's like getting rhodiola in the morning when you need to get out of bed because someone's depressed, right? It's like that bridge that gets you to the, okay, of course I know it's good for me to go outside for a walk. How do I do that? And that's where herbs shine. And so with business and with finance, there's so many wounds that people have around it with their own upbringing or their own, once again, identity, what it does to the world. So that's where mindset and wealth and worth come in so much. So a big tenet that I hold very dear is never say that you're worth it when you're charging for money, because you are priceless. Money is never what you're worth. You can say, and I ask everyone who's listening to this, I charge this because it's market rate. I charge this because other people charge it, because that's what people are willing to spend, a little bit more, a little bit less. And there's a reason for why I charge this for my consult or my product, because I want it to sell. But I'm priceless, right? My worth is around having a livelihood. My worth is around being out there in the world and saying what I do and having other people respect it. But I'm worth beyond what money can buy me. And if we truly have that belief, then we can go in the world and see some of the happiest, most successful people are living below the poverty line because they're choosing it. And they want to be there. That is their choice, and they're happy to be there, and they're abundant, and their social capital is strong, and they're connected with people. But they're very much, these are published authors, these are teachers, but they want that kind of life. They want no bills. They don't want to pay the IRS for the rest of their life, right? That's their choice. Not everyone wants to be in there, especially raising children. It's really hard to live a good life like that. But that's where it's like, what's your zone of tolerance? Where you want to be in the world? And then how do you get there?
Yeah.
Not because of greed or ego, but because that's where you want to be. And that's your worth and your value in the world and what you want to share with others and how you want to live your life. So that's where it's like that's where I see the biggest, strongest fight against the looking at the budget 3 days a week. It's like that. It stops you. And it's like, okay, that's the work that ideally you can do with yourself and then with others. The goal is to also have other people share their values around money so you don't feel alone and ashamed about it. And that's where the community part is going to be, is actually really important for us.
Oh yeah, it's so crucial. Me and my dad right now are accountability buddies on our health journey, and that's basically what y'all are doing as a group. And it's just me and my dad in this little situation. But how many people? Is there a cap on how many you're accepting into the folk group?
No, it's a monthly membership. It's just $50 a month, and there'll be education and e-workbooks, and then live Q&As. And the goal is that we have this monthly ongoing group that people are building their business with, and it could be really slow and intentional. One big subject or a couple subjects a month so people can dive deep into something and get that support. Everything from the mindset we've talked about, to finance, to SEO, digital marketing, to understanding cost of goods sold and overhead, and then how to build a brand, how to build a voice, what your unique value is in the world of business. One concept really important are the riches are in the niches, right? Like, what is your niche? What is your niche? Who are you uniquely in the world, and why are people connecting with you? And so we'll go through month by month, making sure people are connected to these subject matters. And what I've noticed so far in the communicating this program with people is that some people are already running businesses, but they want to do a new line or a new product line, and they want to do this structure to really say, am I doing it right? Am I doing it correctly? Or am I making enough money on this product line? Is this worth my time and energy? Or some people that have been practicing for a long time that say, okay, I need a shift. I need a brand value shift. I need someone else to be supporting me in this process. So it's been nice to see that the community part of it is actually one of the biggest pieces of supporting people in accountability. Because we have that with our herb school, with our clinical herbal program, all this community members supporting each other, and we're geeking out on plants and books and ideas and products. So how do we actually do that same support system with business?
Yeah, the community aspect is crucial. Just out of curiosity, are they going to have any sort of access to you as well?
Yes. So I'll be the one who's doing most of the classes. We'll have that live Q&As. And then if people want to do one-on-ones with me, we'll have an additional package for the one-on-ones. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we get to a audience question? In fact, we've got another audience member joining us now as well. Howdy, Lori. And Sherry's also joining us. And this question is from Sherry. So let me pull this up here. I have a question. How do you manage, in parentheses, what tools do you use? How do you manage to best manage all of the inventory it takes to make medicine? How do you ensure compliance where inventory management is concerned? And does that system or systems integrate with all of your other systems, like managing client relationship management, CRM, and marketing systems? Thoughts?
Well, I'm a big proponent on running really lean companies until you can afford to buy the expensive programs. So you might not like this answer, but I use Google Docs for everything and Google spreadsheets. And is once you can build a spreadsheet, and if you can't, Sherry, definitely feel free to reach out, because there's some easy compliance, and if you're making products specifically on batches, you have to have the date, the packaging, and codes that you build when you make batches to support compliance if you're making products. But we use just the spreadsheets. Once it was built, it's easily to replicate, and there's some good templates out there. Even CRM, so customer relationship management, I just use a spreadsheet for all of that. And I know you can pay for those systems, and then you have to learn those systems. So we do pay for it's not MailChimp, it's OmniSend, it's a email marketing group. We do pay for that stuff, which does support our current email list. And once you get above a certain email list, you should definitely look at a newsletter subscription. I think that's a worthy thing to pay for, because you can track all of your customers and all of your students, whatever product you're putting out there. And that is, I think, something important to pay for. But I have not actually used a lot of other programs personally.
Sherry says, I am currently using Zoho One. I was curious as to what you use.
I don't have experience with Zoho One. I do have a number of friends that use that for their businesses. But again, that's a decision that every business owner or entrepreneur needs to make, is what is actually the most useful for you to do. Yeah. And then once you get an employee or a team member, an apprentice, whatever relationship you have with someone else, making sure that they can utilize the exact same system, which is why I use Google Docs for everything, and my entire team uses Google Docs for everything, and we all have access to the same Google Suite. So we have all of that integrated into our Gmail accounts, which are all Google Suite, and then our Excel files, or our Google Sheets files, and then any Google Docs we share. We have images there that we use for all of our designs. So we have the whole thing through Google Suite.
Including like project management, you're also doing that via Google?
Yeah. And I've tried Asana. I've tried, I think Asana is the only one that I've really tried, and it's worked well for a few people on our team, but it's not something that I've used on my own, that I've ever gotten into. But once again, some people really like certain systems, and there's a flow there for them. So you just have to try out a few things. There's free trials for most things. So feel free to see which one is the one most useful for you.
That's a great point. Sherry says Asana can be overwhelming. And actually, that's what HerbRally uses. We use Asana. Yep. Could not function without some sort of project management software, mainly because you're able to assign dates, due dates, and other collaborators and whatnot. So it's super important for us. But before I was working at Mountain Rose Herbs, I was obsessed with like checklists on just like a Word doc, and that worked totally well for me. I had different Word docs for each individual event that I was organizing, and as long as you have a checklist, that's the most crucial aspect, I'd say.
Exactly. And if you don't have a team member, because a lot of my accountability pieces come with team members that I have, so it's really good that everyone's on the same page. Yeah. But if you're working solo, having that accountability through some sort of spreadsheet software, ideally also with community, does keep people accountable.
It's definitely another positive for the G Suite, the Google Suite, is the ability to share so easily. And plus, it's so ubiquitous, everyone kind of knows how to use it at this point, or a lot of people do. So, yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about brand. What does brand mean to you, and how does one build it over time?
I do often say branding is everything, and I'm sure that's not true, but the concept of it is the thing that I like about branding so much, because branding can shift culture. Yeah. And branding speaks about values. Branding speaks about the community that you're serving, right? If you look at that HerbRally logo behind you, it's green, it's a serif font, it has that like antiquity, old but fresh look with the dandelion leaf under it. We know who you're talking to, but we know also who you're not talking to. Right. And that's the beauty of brand, is who are the people that are going to resonate with your colors, your fonts, your images, your voice, even just the way that you structure a website or social media. And that what we consider your target market or your perfect customer or your perfect student, however you want to look at it. You can call it your avatar, whatever it is. But the brand has to speak to your perfect person that pays you real money for the thing that you do, not this idea of someone, but the actual person in front of you. And sometimes that brand comes through mostly a voice. It depends on what you do, right? You're a podcaster, so your voice is also going to be a really important piece, your tone, how you speak about things, your language. And that also has a lot to do with brand, and that's called brand voice. So I believe brand is really the way we communicate to the world who we are and what we do and what we value. And so it is very intentional for people to build something that actually communicates to our subconscious immediately. This person sees me, I see myself in this thing, and I want to learn more. I want part of that, whether it's packaging on a skincare product or a tea blend, right? And the way we can really test our brand is through community feedback. And so I always recommend making a few versions of your logo, a few versions of your copy, your voice, your tagline, whatever it is, and then test it with a few people that you think are your customers or maybe already are your customers, and get real honest feedback from people to see what associations do they make with your logo, your colors, your voice, because branding is all about associations. Right? Do you connect with joy, with like if you see a super white label that's really clean, sans serif font, you're going to think clinical, like it's an immediate association. Or Apple, right? Apple Computers is like that particular brand. And so what associations are people making with your brand? And do you want those associations with who you are? And does that bring your customer in?
Yeah, I don't want to talk to you if you don't know what that leaf is underneath the HerbRally logo. I'm so happy that well, it's funny because there's a friend of mine, they were like, what is that, like a dragon tail or something like that? They didn't know what was going on there. I was like, no, I really wanted to incorporate a dandelion leaf in the logo, and I think Amanda knocked it out of the park.
It's really good.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. You are so right. People buy through emotion and rarely from necessity. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of people buying wine bottles just based purely on the label.
It's true. I mean, and part of that too, just to go into that a little bit, and then we can finish this branding thing. I could go into branding forever. But the thing is, sometimes we buy something because it's not branded, right? There's the bulk section. I say this often. The bulk section in natural food stores are there for people that don't like branding. Yeah. Right. So if you think you're not marketed to, you are wrong, my friend. We are marketed to all day long. Because if we buy anything, it's been marketed to us in particular. And even if it's at the farmer's market, right, that is marketed directly to the people that like buying at the farmer's market. And so the whole idea is, who are your people? And how are you communicating to them? And where are you communicating to them? And does the brand make them feel happy and seen and loved? And so it's hard. It's hard for us sometimes to get out of our own way to really identify the thing that we want people to have. But the more you try it, the more you get feedback, the easier it'll be to identify that brand.
What do you think about brand as a reputation? Also, I've heard of it's related to businesses and building a company. I've heard like trust is gained in droplets and lost in buckets. So like I just heard that recently. I thought that was really interesting. You build trust with your audience and your fans over long periods of time through little droplets, and then you fuck something up and then you just lose it in buckets immediately. So I was just kind of curious what your thoughts are around brand as related to your trust and all that, or reputation.
I think that goes back to us making decisions based on feeling. So Simon Sinek is a really successful motivational speaker, and he does use a lot of artillery. in his metaphors, so I don't want to use those, but he's brilliant thinking about or sharing about the why.
Yeah.
And how we connect with brands is around their why. And their why is their belief system, their values, their identity of human beings on the world. But that actually talks directly to our limbic brain, which does not associate with language. And so that trust is a feeling. It is a sense. It's in our reptilian brain. It's what we would call spirit or intuition. It's felt before it's thought. And often people say, I don't know why, I just don't trust it, because they can't find the language. It's just a feeling. It's an emotion. And that's how brand has to talk to people too. And so there is that value of emotion connected to trust. And the people behind that brand, if someone can screw up, I've screwed up many times. And I've learned from all of those mess ups and grown so much. I think business is a very spiritual endeavor when you want to do it right and you want to be a good leader. And you will mess up along the way and you will have to repair those mess ups. But yes, people will remember that first, because our reptilian brains, actually, the minute they sense fear, they run away. Right. I think they say good relationships, and this is mostly in marriages, but I think in any relationships, you have to have 5 good, really good experiences for every one bad experience. And it's that same concept of brands, friendships, anything where we have to actually build up that trust and that love and that connection 5 to 10 times more than if we mess up, we have a long time to have to repair. So that does make a lot of sense. And so I think that goes back to associations. Try not to associate your brand with something that people don't trust.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, so well said. And Sherry said, that is so true with my tech company. Trust is our primary pillar.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where relationships become the most important piece of that trust piece, because we're still dealing with humans all day long, right? Those are our customers, no matter what.
Yeah. I just like how you said that entrepreneurship or business building can be seen as like a spiritual, a way of spiritual growth. And I definitely identify with that. Before I was, say, in business, quote unquote, I feel like I've grown a lot since starting HerbRally, and it's made me face a lot of fears. It's helped grow my confidence in so many ways. And I feel like that's spiritual growth in a sense. Like, I never had the ability to go on the internet and, talk to people live per se. And now I feel like I can do that. So there's just so many ways of growing through building a business. And I just wanted to highlight that. I thought that was a really interesting point.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I very much believe it.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're not just out here trying to be greedy and make a shitload of money or whatever. So,
and even if we are trying to make a shitload of money, my goal is, what I often say is, if you have the motivation and the desire to make a shitload of money, buy back land for indigenous people all over the world. Like, be that millionaire. Let it flow through you. There are plenty of people that need good philanthropists in the world and good support systems. So I know herbalists want to do good by each other and good by the world. And if they can be successful, I know the world will be a better place, because money is power, right? It does shift dynamics. And so it's the greed that's the scary part of the money making piece, and everyone can get it, right? The goal is that knowing why you're doing it will actually get you to the place where you can make a living and even have overflow.
Yeah, build wealth so you could give it all away. Absolutely.
Yes, exactly. If you're motivated, that's the greatest motivation.
Amen. Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, I still have a few more questions if you got the time, Laura.
Please, of course.
Awesome.
Yes.
And to the couple folks in the audience, feel free to leave any questions if you like. Otherwise, just continue to enjoy the convo. Laura, on your Instagram, you posted recently, and maybe we've covered some of this already, but I just really like the quote. So I'll read it here, and then you could expound upon it if you like. So it says, or you say, scarcity is a deadly beast that will come in and start ruling your world if you're unaware of its claws around your beliefs. Building a foundation of wealth, in quotes, around you can help shift a mindset of mistrust and mistrust in the journey ahead. Remembering past times that did work and were abundant is helpful for self-confidence to talk to the right people to help guide me when I need it. So I feel like I quasi butchered that, but if you want me to read it again, I will. Otherwise, we could just let it roll.
No, it's okay. I wasn't
Okay.
writing it for a quote, so thank you for reading that entire thing. I think I need to shorten that.
Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing.
absolutely.
Yeah, I shut down my brick and mortar herbal apothecary in February, and it's been really challenging. I left with a lot of debt and a lot of sadness around that, and the mistrust in myself of being a business owner, even though, yes, I could have done things differently, hindsight 2020 on everything.
Sure.
But the market is where it's at in San Francisco, and retail's failing in many places in the country and in the world. And there were also a lot of factors that were out of my control. So I understand all of those pieces, but it still is really hard, and it's challenging. And anyone that's had to do that with their business, make that tough decision, is going to understand what I'm talking about. So in this transition of me rebuilding my career and shifting all of my energy to verse and working with clients more thoroughly, scarcity of that idea that I'm not enough or there's not enough is the thing that keeps me small. Even like my body cringes when I think of it, right? I get my shoulders get tight and my heart sinks in. But the more work I do around this, the more conscious I am about, I'm not interested in making a decision right now for my well-being of myself and my family with scarcity, because that actually supports the wrong decision to be made, right? And I'm lucky enough to be able to have a strong spiritual practice, really good teachers, really good community, a beautiful wife, amazing children that are supporting me in this transition. But it will take over, and it will make you small, and it will get you depressed and reduce and lonely, and it'll reduce your ability to connect with others. And so part of my practice has been to say, what is wealth really? And it's this beautiful life we live, this connection to the earth, walking around in trees and watching the abundance around the planet and around our own communities actually does help shift that enough to say, what's possible? What is possible for me? And so I'm encouraging people, one, sharing my personal experience, which is vulnerable, but also encouraging people that are in that space. I know so many people in transition right now. COVID's done a whirlwind for people, either grown their business, they've had to pivot their business, they've left the job wanting to do something themselves, like big transitions for a lot of people right now. And then hopefully it's just a mindset shift to get you to the place where you can start saying what's possible. And taking inventory with your friends of saying, what do you think I'm really good at? What do you think you could see me doing? Is actually a great way to get out of your own grief and out of your own shame, because you will find people to say, well, you're really good at this and you're really good at this. And then watch what's common and see if there's something there. And I know you were going to talk about zone of genius. It's this concept. I'll get there. I
Your
got
fingers
there.
on the pulse. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. This idea of you're really good at something, but you really also love it. You're not just good at it. You love it. It actually gives you energy. You actually feel better when you do it. It's like imagine a spiral going up. Like, oh, you leave the moment that you did it and you feel elated. It's actually a concept of bliss. And then the tertiary concept is, and the world really needs it too.
So it's like the little chart where they all meet in the middle.
Exactly. The Venn diagram where they meet in the middle.
Yeah.
And so if you look at that middle piece, that's where the zone of genius, and this is a business concept, but also a life concept and actually people will pay for it. And you can make a good living doing it. And actually, it's probably not what you think it is, right? Because just because you're really good at spreadsheets doesn't mean you need to go become an accountant, right? But maybe there's some other pieces there of operations with a particular type of company or a particular service that you're really good at doing. So we'll explore this in the group too, and people will be exploring it for themselves. Of the zone of genius is actually what people ideally are spending 80% of their time doing, but most people are not even close to their zone of genius of where they're working. There's 4 zones, according to Gay Hendricks, who wrote The Big Leap, which is a great book. He also wrote a book after that called The Genius Zone that goes deeper into this. Cool. But he has 4 zones: zones of intolerance, zone of incompetence, zone of competence, zone of excellence, and zone of genius. And most people are in their zone of competence because they're good at it. They get by, they get, rewards from their company or whatever. But the zone of excellence is really good at it, actually making very good livelihood, finding really good flow. But that zone of genius is not just being good at it, it's actually finding elation around it. And it might actually be the coming to goddess moment where people are like, I actually love this so much. How do I create a living out of it? And then that's the creative process of, is there a place where you can actually create a livelihood out of this? And that's the process of building something new.
I like how you said it might be something that you don't even expect. It was kind of going back to my days at Mountain Rose Herbs. Before I started working in the marketing department, I knew that I wanted to be in the herbal community, in the herbal industry, but I didn't know that it was going to consist of working in marketing. But over time, sure enough, I'm like, oh, wow, I really enjoy this. This is a lot of fun. And then it became kind of an obsession, got better and better at it. And then I realized, oh, this is great. I don't want to say I found a zone of genius per se, but it was definitely unexpected and delightful. And I was able to, help create a life around it. So if anyone in the audience wants to share what their zone of genius might be, I highly doubt anyone's going to want to share that. But Laura, to put you on the spot, do you know can you define what your zone of genius is?
Yeah, I find that teaching is absolutely the zone of genius that I feel right now because I love it. Cool. I work hard at it, but I do love it. And as an extrovert, it makes it very much easier thing to do. Not that introverts can't be teachers,
sure, but
I do get a lot of energy out of it. Yeah. And I'm finding that the most energy I get out of teaching is teaching around business and business concepts. And cool. So it's that intersection between my love of herbalism, my love of the herbal community, my love of that healing, and then my love of the entrepreneurship and my experience there, and then the passing down of that wisdom and that zone of genius. And zones of genius will change for people, right? And sometimes it's not the place that they can put all of their energy in right now, but I think learning it and understanding it and allowing yourself to find it is that risk that some people are just too afraid to get out of their comfort zone. Okay,
perfect. Well, as we're wrapping up here, I'd love to hear more about some of the basic details like dates. When are you starting? When is it ending? I want to say that I read that maybe there's a couple other teachers, maybe who are the other teachers, and just other basic details about the program.
Yeah. Yes. It starts in September. Okay. September 4th is our first time. And this will be live online for those that can make it live, but all of it will be recorded because we know people are busy. So it's also that opportunity to watch it later and then do a lot of that self-work. And it starts September 4th. And then the 2 other team members that are going to be joining are actually my team members from Verse.
Nice.
My operations manager, Kirsten Hedges, will be talking about back-end operations. Sherry, you're going to love her. She has all the CRM stuff, all of the to-do lists. And then Marie Lamy, who used to work with me at Scarlet Sage and came over to Land of Verse, and she does all of our website, all of the SEO, digital marketing, all of the newsletters, all of the setup for that success, those calendars of getting out to the world, and all of the digital tech stuff that people do not like doing. She's here for that. So you'll be working with business people who are doing it in real time with the industries of product and services specifically for the community that we're going to be serving. And then we have an Asian American herbalism program starting with Erin Masako Wilkins, which was here with you a while ago. Yep. And that's going to be the following week. And that's a 6-week course that she'll be teaching. And then we have our 2025 community apprentice and clinical herbal courses starting in February 2025.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And Sherry says that's my zone of genius, which I presume she's talking about the tech side of things. So
yes,
good.
I
love all the crossovers. Who was it? Someone the other day I was communicating with via email. They were an engineer / herbalist. Like I feel like I hear about a lot of like doctor herbalists, nurse herbalists, but I love it when there's the techie herbalists and herbalists on every street corner. That's right.
Yes, exactly.
Well, very good. I will be sure to leave links to the Asian American Herbalist with Erin Misako Wilkins, along with all of the other programs that we chatted about here today, in the podcast show notes and the YouTube description. Sherry also says, my biggest takeaway from today is your willingness to openly share your expertise, your successes, but even more where you were not successful. Failure comes to all, and it is a huge learning opportunity. Without it, you cannot grow. Thank you for sharing it all.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you so much, Sherry. This is my journey right now to be able to share all the pieces that come with life, right? And life comes with hardship sometimes. It really does. But my goal, and hopefully everyone here that will join, is saying that actually does define you, but doesn't make you less worthy of a person to enjoy a beautiful life, but hopefully just gleans a lot of lessons.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So holistic business folk membership coming up September. Links will be in the podcast show notes. Any closing thoughts before we wrap up and get out of here, Laura?
Thank you so much for your time, Mason. You're such an inspiration, and I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Ditto. No, this was a lot of fun. I'm really excited to delve further into your story in the Herbalist Hour coming up February, so stay tuned for that. We're a few months out, but this is a lot of fun. We'll get this posted within a week or so. So thanks to the couple of you that showed up live as well. That was a lot of fun. And we'll do this again soon. We'll see you in the next episode of the HerbRally Podcast. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, this is Mason with HerbRally. Thanks so much for watching today's video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and also go ahead and subscribe. We come out with new herbal content each and every week. If you didn't know, HerbRally also lists Herbalism events. We list Herbalism events chronologically. We list them also by state. So you could just go ahead and search by Oregon or Wisconsin or wherever you live. You can find out what Herbalism events are happening in your neck of the woods. We also list Herbalism events, virtual herbal events. So if you can't make it to an in-person conference or plant walk, we list lots of virtual events as well. To find out more, you could go to herbrally.com/events or herbrally.com/virtual. But if you can help it, I would highly recommend trying to go to an herbalism conference. Those are some of the best learning experiences I've ever had, and that's where you can find different herbal teachers, and then maybe you could perhaps take their apprenticeship. But yeah, just do what you can. Get out there and learn about the herbs, like yarrow, dandelion, corn, all the above, like all the medicinal herbs. And we'll see you out there. Hope to see you at an herb conference. All right, bye.